Hey guys, how are you? Yeah, short follow-up on a free view that I did at the back end of our trading theory weekend. We had a lovely group of guys physically in the room, and we had a good chunk of folk that were following virtually, and it was a great event. And we did a final quick wrap, a sort of wrap around. I think it was about 15 or 20 minutes. In fact, 21 minutes 34, if that's anything to go by. And we looked at a few coins, and I gave you my favorite preference on the short to medium time frame setups. I liked Neo best, and spent a bit of time there. And then I also made a longer term move for Bitcoin Cash, which is BCC on Bittrex, where we have the coin's price action from its very inception, and BCH on many of the other bigger volumes setups. However, because we've been referring to the super macro setup from whence it listed, I have called it BCC because it is then specific, Bitcoin Cash BCC, to that particular exchange where we get some amplitude and geometry. So there were some people asking about that. It is also BCH, of course, on Polynex and Bitfinex, but they didn't recognize the coin immediately. Okay, yeah, so let's have a look. Oh, we got some comments. This is the cook that said Bitcoin would be down to 7,000 or maybe even 6,000 by now, and it shot up. So why is he giving classes, and why would anyone bother to listen? Obviously, he's clueless. So I will actually take apart drive past Bitcoin as well, and I will continue to refer to the potential for exactly that to happen, and those that think that that has passed may be inaccurate. There is a possibility risk that downside of Bitcoin still occurs. So let's start with Bitcoin. I did make a reference. You've always, with a crypto analysis, should start with Bitcoin. By the way, I can always remove and delete comments like this. I think it's quite useful for people that make comments that don't understand the structure and the fragment of what we do. At least in terms of view, they keep you critically thinking. I can always be wrong, and it's never bad to have someone who reminds you of that, even if he's quite ignorant as to what we're about and what we're doing. I could be David Koresh and just delete anything that's remotely negative, but the truth is there's no value in having all hail and all praising and kneeling before type cult. We are not that. We're probability-based assessments. I'm not into gurudom or excessive egodom. I don't think it helps your trading. So let's do this with Bitcoin. On this bigger, slightly disproportionate setup, what do I mean by that? It means that the first impulse is a lot bigger than the second two, which are over here. The second two, the bigger one is up top here. You have the chart, but that's actually not the bit where I want to spend the most of the time. So I was being called out for suggesting that there was a problem here, and that we were grindingly weak, and then, as stated, it went above 12,000, when I was warning that in fact it can go below 7, and I'm going to squeeze the rest of the chart in so you can see those values actually. Let's get them in. There you go, that'll help. So I suspect the cynic is referring to this part of the price action where we're saying there was a squeeze here. There was a potential for the inverted to be early. In other words, we had a possible second income and a bid loss, complete bid loss. Note these capitulations, and then there was a potential for an H3. And what had happened there is that risk passed when it went through that, but that doesn't mean the overall structure has gone away. It just means it could have extended. So to deal with that, we did actually trade through 12,000, and we did actually go as high as 12,200, which might be why he was referring to 12,000 plus. And since then, we went into a falling wedge, weak bounce out, and are spilling lower. So Bitcoin is back at 10.9. We would have been referring around about the RH3 here, which is 11,430, and the down leg, so around about the same levels. It's far from bullish in terms of his assessment, and the risk remains. These down legs are relatively ugly. They're fairly firm. We had quite a big spill here. This up leg is all part of a rising wedge structure. Look at that line. That's a grind. a grind through there, a grind through there. This was probably the most bullish stage where you had a bit of HVF structure and you pumped right up to 13.5 in fact. But look how flat bottomed it is and how it's spilling. Even if it turned right now, and it's not showing any clear-cut mentality to do that, Bitcoin is not super strong. I don't make a career out of calling it short. Generally, you want to bias long on cryptos. So there's always a risk with warning for downside. You want to have an inherent bias for longs on the majors in cryptos where there's true history and legacy. But within that, you can't avoid those key moments where the pattern suggests that you have downside targets and are generally probability based, not always far wrong. So we have from the bigger structure pattern that's with that high to right up there following the previous spill, we have been in spill-offs, and it isn't over until it's over, and it isn't over until it stops making continuation patterns. And the best way to trade is to be continuation bias, not a reversal picker. So that's all we're doing. I didn't say or forecast that it would happen. I said there's an unbalance of probability risk that there could be further downside to those levels. And I maintain that that's still true. So there were some folk that kindly came to my support with regards to that, as if, well, he's sometimes wrong, but he often gets a lot right. I don't believe the risk is gone here. This still could happen. That doesn't mean it has to happen. It's just a probability-based assessment. So here we go. Up we go. We resisted in the funnel of the downside, quite steeply back down. We don't know where our low 3 might be. It could be here, but that's a nasty little sell-off. It's bit rich to assume that that would stop. I think there's a distinct possibility we get to these levels, and it could even be more bearish and go lower still. This is not a convincing strength rally. That is a grind up, spill, dropped into the lower rung of the rising wedge, grind, couple of pops, touches the other side, can't hold it for long, back into the lower half, can't hold that for long, breaks the wedge, small amount of return move. That's that little shooting star there. It's not really a shooting star, but a little bit of a backward leg. It gets beaten back and then you spill. That is weakness. And a rising wedge is not strength, even though you're effectively going up. So that's where we're at with Bitcoin. And where would it mean if you had a high 2 here and you got a low 3 somewhere here and you ended up with access somewhere here? This projection would be, give or take, and this is a guesstimation because we don't have those high 3s and low 3s, not very far, a booster inverted pattern to this downside target that we already have from the slightly disproportionate. And this one was tricky. It's not been super clean. You kind of had a very complex bottoming in here before you made this high over there. And this is disproportionately small relative to these. So this is quite a messy draw. I wouldn't call it a high confidence pattern, but it is structure for downside. This is actually better quality, and it may require and need that level of churn and a wind up to do it. Where was our second interim? Here it goes. So we're doing quite a detailed uptake for you on Bitcoin over here. Since running this, you've been a churning, and that seems absolutely fair and reasonable to me. So that risk hasn't gone away. So I'm afraid that bet is still open. It may still be proven incorrect, and I'm okay with that. I'm not marrying any views. I'm just saying I don't want to be caught long Bitcoin. And in fact, when Bitcoin isn't contracted, the risk we have, as I mentioned in the video, is that you will have some level of contraction on the overall crypto market cap, as we said in this video. So if you want to go have a look, this is the title, Crypto Market Assessment Live from Theory Week, and we streamed it. It was a bit tough with a bright screen, and I was using a laser. Sorry it didn't show. Next time if we do something like this, it was a first. I'll point with a finger. We want it to always be as good and as useful as possible for you, but that's it. So I'm done with Bitcoin. The ones we liked and that we showed, the best and pick of the bunch was a Neo, which has just made a first interim. I'll just show you a part of our premium area. Let's see, here we go. This is some of our updates on NEO. I've put this in all one post. This is where we are now, heading to the interim. This is in order of how it was, so you can see we've been tracking this for a while. This is now dropping down into the funnel. We call that trigger time frame. That is into the funnel, and that was earlier as it was breaking into the funnel. This was after it had broken its prime and it was just triggering the macro pattern, and there you can see the context of that. So if you're in the premium area, you could have been in this trades from that orange line, but we took it live to you guys on Freeview, and that was then it was round about here. These are all date time stamped, by the way, so you can see that was the 29th at 44 minutes past GMT time 22. So that was literally a day and a few hours before. That was at just before 10 o'clock. This was at 6:55. So you need to see where we were the day before. What date and time were we here? That was the 29th at 03:49 in the morning. Yep, that's me. Just about 4 in the morning. That was 01:37 on the 29th, so that was still really theory weekend, but I hadn't gone to bed yet post that. That was 1 hour past midnight as the primer was triggering. So when we were talking about it at theory weekend, it was about 5:30 on the 29th. It was about 5:30, and it would have been around here-ish, because this is all around about midnight. There we go. What do we got? What do we got? What do we got? Anyway, if you're in the premium, you'll have a look at this. By the way, we've also we're upgrading our platform, and I've done a short vid demo for the guys that we're going full buddy press. It's going to be pretty awesome for how we're going to run it. Big capital investment. I might make that free view so you can see how we are setting ourselves up going forward for the future to serve people. But NEO is performing pretty nicely now. Now let's just have a look at this. This is on a shorter time frame. You can see it's made the short time frame target. Should see it on the bigger time frame first, and we can drop back down. Now it's made an interim. It will rest and pause. This is the risk reward profile, by the way. I don't know any other strategy that gives you these kind of levels of risk reward, but I would say that, of course. So it's 23.47. That's with a primer. Why add your way to wealth when you can multiply your way to wealth with a primer in an existing HVF? And they often occur, and we watch for them, and we know what we're looking for, and we have a community of well-trained snipers all doing that. So here's your volume by price. That gives you an idea of where a lot of the collective volume is occurring across certain price levels. We'll teach you how you use that and what the significance is when you do your program. But anyway, so that was interim was made. You went into a rising wedge. When you're in an HVF, particularly with an upside target and an interim not too far away, you often melt up towards the interim and make it as you have done there. Likely that you'll have a little bit of a relapse now and pull back. We've done a lot in a short time. On NEO, small pullback. This is NEO Bitcoin, by the way, and just to show you that we do 360-degree analysis for our cynical friends, we also have that's on the 15-minute, we have a NEO Ethereum, which is quite interesting because Ethereum's been quite strong, and I've been a holder of Ethereum. I also covered Ethereum in that chat, and you can have a look at it. It even has an upside against Ethereum, and we are happy with the fact that it has an upside against Bitcoin. So we want to gather Bitcoin valuation, and you'll learn about how we drew this against Ethereum. You broke out some while ago actually over here and pull back, and Ethereum's been pretty strong against Bitcoin, so it's been a good parking place. But I've gone overweight on NEO and shed some of my Ethereum to hold a disproportionate holding in NEO, and it has been paying rather nicely, and we're happy with that. And of course, NEO versus dollar and the fiat, also in a nice HVF and consistently working its way up. Hasn't gone parabolic yet, but so it's had a certain kind of what we call a grind line under it. Could have a little stab down during that period, maybe overnight now, because we are expecting Ethereum of its own accord, which has been drifting down in a falling wedge, to melt it out the bottom, to have a little pop back up. It's in an HVF against Tether, and the dollar is just NEO is stronger still. So those are two of the strongest, and NEO is the boss, and that's how I said to you, get into NEO. And you could have got into it at that point as it was breaking over here, not at our primer because you weren't in premium, but you could have got in quite early after as it was just breaking over there. So that was as per our call on the 29th. Something else I showed you was ICX. And this is spotted by one of our lovely students over from France. This shows how quickly you can be up and running and implementing the skill for yourself. And ICX is not too bad because it's got reasonable liquidity as well. We don't spend our time. I can pick, number 900s and 800s on HVS all day long, but good luck with trying to move much more than a Bitcoin in and out. All these coins that we are showing you are some of the best and biggest and most liquid. They're in the top 25. This is number 15, and of course NEO, you'll know, is in and around that 10 or 12. I haven't checked recently, but this setup is also a good setup, and has a nice number of targets. So if you look at the multiples that you might be getting out of these things, you'll see exactly what's on the table for you. You could have been getting in on the primer break over there at 7s and trading up to 10s. So low 771s up to 10.2s. Got to remember that it's not too bad. It's about 3,100. It's almost about 40%. Not too bad at all. We've had a bit of a frosty winter on the crypto front so far, so it's a nice little loosener to get you back in the game. You can see what else we've been. Let's have a look at the NEO. What was the potential there on your dollar side of things? You could have got in here again, priming at about 140, and that's 240. A nice little 80% going on 85-90% move in your dollar terms. And how will it work your Bitcoin value or your Ethereum value? Let's have a look at it. You could have got in here on the squeeze in the funnel, but certainly at the latest point over there at about 10 or 11% of Ethereum. You're now at about 14%, and when it finishes it'll be almost a quarter of an Ethereum, a NEO. And let's have a look at it. Bitcoin, most of you understand Bitcoin valuation. You could have got in at Bitcoin a 0.012, and you're now at 15. So you've gone from 12 to 1500 satoshis, and the final job will actually take you quite close to 17. My suspicion is you'll run 11,680 and probably 1700. And given how early you are in the ETH valuation run, this could lead to overperformance in NEO on all three structures. So for this one, just to get to target, assuming it performs, it doesn't have to. You can have two that perform and one that doesn't, but usually in these situations it's not unreasonable to say there's a decent probability of all three performing. In the event that you go all the way up to the 24s on Ethereum, and you're coming all the way from the 10s down here, and from when you triggered on Bitcoin, it's already was about 11.7. This is a doubler. So by performing against Ethereum, you'll have probably overrun these targets by some way on Bitcoin and also on the dollar. That said, Ethereum could be weakening and relaxing down while Bitcoin and the dollar is firming. So you could just be performing against the Ethereum trade and no longer making big ground or headway on Bitcoin and the dollar. So all options remain open, but my suspicion is there's a good chance that both, in fact all three targets for NEO, and this is what I say is 360-degree analysis that we do a lot of time on the boards, makes it a good holding for the short and medium term. So we are overweight there, and in fairness to you, you're getting in this still quite early. Our guys were in earlier still, but in terms of the dollar, if we run to 240, it's still some way away at 165, so there's some juice left for the free view guys, and maybe it'll take some of you through to the point where you can get on a program for yourself, not cheap, high quality people in there, and generally prefer interacting there than the general YouTube environment for that quality. But our channel is fortunate as well to have largely good people who understand what we do. Let's see if our friend, in the event that Bitcoin does in fact trade down out of an inverted here and make a 7,000 number, a number beginning with 7 and maybe even one with 6, ever comes back to say, hey bud, sorry I crapped all over your comment section, but that probability did turn out accurate. What odds of that? Not big. Not big at all. Okay, but that's not for him. It's for you. And I hope you enjoy the probability assessment as it is being delivered. And for what it is, there are no guarantees. This is my take. Go to your own opinions. Establish your own method if you think you have a better way. That's the freedom of this beautiful world. Hope you enjoyed the free view. This is your catch-up on NEO and ICX. We threw in ICX as well. We're still a little bit more in it to go to 10.2, currently at 8, so even that's still about 25%, a little over 25%. That doesn't mean it's necessarily a chase in here. We had a little fractal in there. I was winding up, but then I forgot to mention. You can see you get a little wind up there, makes it, could dip down a little lower, back down by the funnel. Maybe you can break an entry somewhere down here and ride the good bit. That's up to you. For the free views, we have our own way of doing it. But good luck, good luck. None of this is meant as assertion to trade or to take any of these ideas. Own whatever you do, make your own decisions and own your own outcomes. This is Francis, aka the Market Sniper, the Crypto Sniper, getting back to you on a free view that was done out of our theory weekend on 2 of the coins covered. And that'll be it for tonight, and I am turning in. Have a good evening.